Electrophoresis relies on the principle of forcing charged molecules, it can be DNA or protein, through a gel by electrical current. In the case of protein separation, the gel is polyacrylamide gel, and it is often prepared with the detergent sodium dodecyl sulphate, so that you end up separating the proteins based on size alone and not the inherent charges of the protein. In contrast, you may use native polyacrylamide gel separation, and in this case you separate based on size as well as mass to charge ratios. So you first start off by extracting the protein from either tissue or cells. If it's from tissue, you have to first homogenize the tissues, then you go ahead and once you have the individual cells, you then apply a process that will allow you to extract proteins from the membrane, from the cytoplasm, or from the nucleus. And if you're interested in protein from just a particular compartment of the cell, then you use reagents and methodology that is optimized for extracting proteins from that particular part of the cell. So once you have your protein mixture, this is the time that you're going to put it on the gel and separate it. So most importantly, after the extraction, the final step before loading your sample onto the polyacrylamide gel is the addition of SDS, of a buffer that contains sodium dodecyl sulphate. Now, sodium dodecyl sulphate, as we mentioned, is an anionic detergent, so it imparts an overall negative charge to each of the protein in the sample, and so you're able to separate based on size alone. Gel electrophoresis is really a process where you're forcing proteins through a gel using electrical currents. Following electrophoresis of the proteins through the gel so that you have separation of the proteins, you want to transfer the proteins from the gel to a membrane. The advantages of transferring to the membrane is that you're now able to do lots of experiments with your proteins in a format that's more durable. So the gel is fragile, it tears easily, falls apart easily, whereas the membrane is much tougher and much stronger. These membranes have very strong attraction, what is termed affinity for proteins. Flank the gels with filter paper and porous material that will allow the proteins to move from the gel to the membrane as you apply electrical currents. The two membranes that are commonly used are nitrocellulose or polyvinylidene difluoride. When electricity is applied, the proteins move from the polyacrylamide gel onto the membrane where they bind tightly. Following transfer of the proteins from the gel to the membrane, you can check whether you had sufficient transfer by staining the gel. You want to use a reversible stain because then you're going to be using the membrane for probing with your antibody. So you want to use the reversible stain, and the most common one is Ponso S. Now onto the blocking stage. So as mentioned, the membranes that you use to transfer the proteins have a very high affinity for the proteins. So after the transfer, you want to block any part of the membrane that does not have a protein bound to it. This is to prevent the antibody that you will be subsequently using to detect your protein of interest from binding to the free surfaces that are available on the membrane. And this will, if that happens, you're going to get unspecific binding in addition to a really high background. You can use milk, skim milk, as a blocking agent. Typically it's 5% skim milk, or you can use serum or even highly purified proteins to block sites that you didn't transfer proteins onto during the transfer step. So you've got your proteins onto a membrane, you've blocked the sites that did not have proteins bound to prevent a really high background signal. So then you're going to put the primary antibody that will detect the antigen. This is the protein in the mixture that you want to see if it's there, or you want to compare their levels. Before we get to that, let's talk about washing steps and the kind of buffer that you need. So usually you can use phosphate buffered saline or tris buffered saline. Now phosphate buffered saline or tris buffered saline are generally interchangeable, but if you're looking for phospho proteins or phosphorylated proteins, then you want to stay away from phosphate buffered saline and use tris buffered saline. Also, if you are using alkaline phosphatase conjugated antibodies, as we'll get into in a little bit, then you also want to stay away from phosphate buffered salines and use your tris buffered saline. So let's detect your antigen or protein of interest. So you want to use a primary antibody that is designed for Western blotting. Generally, labs stay away from primary antibodies that are directly detectable, so they go for a primary antibody, then they'll use a secondary antibody that is conjugated to an enzyme such as alkaline phosphatase, or maybe a fluorophore that you can then subsequently detect, and that allows you to indirectly detect the protein of interest in the primary antibody that you used. So your secondary antibody is going to be whichever species the primary antibody was raised in. So if the primary antibody was raised in mice, then the secondary antibody will be an anti-mouse antibody. If the primary antibody was raised in rabbit, then the secondary must be against rabbit antibodies, etc. You dilute the antibody, which will come as a stock, quite a concentrated stock, and you dilute it in a wash buffer. So let's talk about what you're going to use as a wash buffer there. So wash buffers typically is as we mentioned, the PBS or the TBS, and you can spike in some blocking agent, and this reduces unspecific binding or a high background. You can also put in a tiny percentage of detergent, and Twin tends to be a popular detergent. So we mentioned that the secondary antibody is usually tagged or coupled with an enzyme or a fluorophore, and in the case of the enzyme, when there's a substrate present, it releases signal that you detect if the protein you're looking for is in the mixture that you've transferred. Or if it's the fluorophore, then the secondary antibody will allow you to detect. So in the past, secondary antibodies were coupled to radioisotopes. So if you're in a lab that's still using that, then that would be your detection. You would have instruments for detecting your protein via radioisotopes. More and more antibodies that are coupled to fluorophores are becoming really popular. So if your secondary antibody is coupled to a fluorophore, you will need specialized equipment for detecting, because you need an excitation light source to excite the fluorophore in order to detect its light emission. The popularity of this method is also because you can use more than one fluorophore, and so you can multiplex. Coupling the secondary antibody to a fluorophore, such as Electrophoresis or dye-light fluorophores, are becoming popular because there is no substrate step that you need to perform, and so it's a lot faster. See you in the next video. All the best with your Western blot experiments.